turn to page 91 and hold Psalm 23 on your lap. And just listen to this rendition of the psalm by Norman Fisher. You are my shepherd. I am content. You lead me to rest in the sweet grasses, to lie down by the quiet waters, and I am refreshed. You lead me down the right path, the path that unwinds in the pattern of your name. And even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you are with me, comforting me with your rod and your staff, showing me each step. You prepare a table for me in the midst of my adversity and moisten my cup with oil. Surely my cup is overflowing, and goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and in the long days beyond, I will always live in your house.
Please join me. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echzar, b'inot desher yarbitzeni, al memenuchot yenaleini. Nashi yeshovei, Nashi yeshovei, Yancheni maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit zalmavet, lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged zorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed, yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai, Vishavati beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Didi-dai, dai, dai, dai. Didi-dai, dai, dai, dai. Didi-dai, dai, 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 dai. Didi-dai, dai, dai, dai. Didi-dai, dai, dai, dai. Ai, dai, 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 dai.
May their memories be a blessing for us. And those memories that are a bit more difficult, may we continue to process and be able to be ourselves, even given some of the troubles that we may have had with some folks who may have passed away. And all the rest of the folks that we knew that were blessings, may they continue to be blessings for us. So, the end of Yizkor, I turn to a sermon for this afternoon, and I'm returning to the theme of atonement. And I want to talk about my atonement, my teshuvah, in regard to Israel-Palestine. But to talk about my teshuvah, I need to talk about my story. And it's my story, and maybe it's not yours. And it's also my perspective, and maybe not yours. A teshuvah on Israel-Palestine on a Yom Kippur afternoon is not comfortable. But I am going to endeavor to end this sermon on a note of healing. And atonement is, because teshuvah is not an end in itself. And atonement is not an end in itself. What it is essential about it is that its purpose is for healing and for repairing that which is broken. I turned 16 2 weeks after the Six-Day War in 1967. In the Zionist family in which I grew up, my siblings and I were expected to go to Israel in the summer after your 16th birthday. That is why, as the coincidence of my birth date would have it, I found myself in Jerusalem 5 weeks after the war was over. I grew up with people who reminisced about seeing the Wailing Wall or the Kotel before 1948, before Jews were prohibited there by the Jordanian regime. I remembered the photos and paintings of the wall in my synagogue and Hebrew school. So as the tourist bus crossed what had been no man's land into East Jerusalem, I knew exactly what to expect. I knew that the Kotel faced a line of small buildings across a narrow street. There couldn't have been more than 20 feet separating the wall from its neighboring buildings. Go ahead and Google Wailing Wall before 1948, and you'll see. So we get off the bus, and we walk in, and it doesn't look anything like I expected. The wall itself looks like the old pictures, but nothing else does. I see that the Kotel no longer follows a narrow street, but now faces a large open area. I ask our tour guide, didn't there used to be houses here? Did the Jordanians clear them away? No, he tells me, we just did it. So then as a 16-year-old, I asked the guide an age-appropriate question. What about the people who lived here? He looked at me as if I were stupid and said, what does that matter? It seemed to me that it did matter. And so what I thought would be a miraculous time of seeing this last remnant of the great temple turned into a sour moment of confusion. It was my second day ever in Israel-Palestine. I was there for several weeks, during which people often talked about how the territories were a great bargaining chip for peace, and that this was likely to happen very soon. That was 52 years ago. I've been back several times since then, and my stomach churns a bit when I see that open area facing the wall. In 2011, I was back at the same spot with a group of Bay Area rabbis. I was invited to get up close to the wall and place a personal prayer there. I said no. I told my story and explained that the Kotel had lost its sacredness to me. And then a few days later, we came to the large barrier wall, which blocks the road from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. There I got off the bus with a piece of paper in my hand and walked to a small gap between the segments of the wall, and there I squeezed in my prayer. I would tell you what I wrote, but if I did, maybe my prayer wouldn't come true, and then that wall would then stand forever. And that's why I can't tell you. Two years ago, I crossed to the other side of that barrier wall on the same street. And when I did this when I went with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence to support Palestinian villagers. It is part of my atonement. I've seen how the ever-deepening Israeli occupation of the West Bank constantly messes with lives of Palestinians, and I mean everyday nonviolent Palestinians just trying to live their lives. In the South Hebron Hills, I saw illegal Israeli settlement outposts, illegal even by Israeli law, and I saw how settlements in a desert area receive enough electricity to power their air conditioners and enough water to keep their lawns green. Meanwhile, the legal Palestinian villages right next to them get little or no water through the water system and live in fear that their solar panels will be destroyed or confiscated. I've seen the ruins of buildings bulldozed because they were built after years of waiting for a building permit that would never come. I do understand that Israelis have real fears of violence. The Israeli regimes have blamed the Palestinian leadership exclusively for the failure of reaching a resolution. I don't agree, but even if that were true, it in no way explains or excuses the continuous building of settlements, nor does it excuse depriving people under occupation of necessary resources. There is no security basis to extend Israeli society into the West Bank, an area that is internationally recognized as the land that ultimately must be part of a Palestinian state. I can see that every measure is taken to make Israeli settlers as safe and as comfortable as possible to live in the occupied territory, while life for the Palestinians becomes harsher with the arbitrary nighttime house invasions by Israeli military, not because anyone in the house has done anything that is problematic, but simply to create a sense of intimidation and dependency. And we know this because Israeli soldiers have told us so. And all of this drives me batty. I can see the trauma that 3 generations of Palestinians have suffered under occupation. But I also know the long-term anti-Jewish trauma and genocide that gave rise to the State of Israel after hundreds of years of oppression in Christian Europe. Zionism was also the outcome of a broken promise of Jewish emancipation by the movement of 19th century Enlightenment. The failure of that promise culminated in the most egregious anti-Semitic fascism that arose in the most liberal country for Jews at that time, Germany. That betrayal, which began well before the Holocaust, is what made political Zionism possible. So, true to the international political process of that time, the settling of Palestine by Jews followed a model similar to European settler colonialism, but with a significant difference. Most of the Jews settling in Palestine had no sense that they were doing so in order to give a European mother country a foothold in the land. Most of the immigrants were essentially doing this to create a refuge because of anti-Semitism in Europe, and America persisted, and Jewish exclusion from such places as the US worsened, especially after the U.S. Immigration Act of 1924, which disproportionately affected Jews seeking to immigrate or to receive asylum. If it weren't for anti-Semitism, no movement for a national Jewish refuge would ever have gotten off the ground. And even non-Zionists like Isaac Deutscher conceded that a refuge had been necessary. Martin Buber, Rabbi Judah Magnus, and Henrietta Zold supported the idea of a refuge, but they did not frame their Zionism specifically as an effort to create a Jewish state. And they insisted that any refuge for Jews must not damage the rights of Palestinians, nor their aspirations for freedom. That, however, was not the dominant mode of Zionism by the Jewish political leadership in Palestine at that time. So I grew up understanding how anti-Semitism brought about the creation of Israel, but I was not taught, and I did not know, about the disenfranchisement and expropriation that was employed in its creation in 1948. I was taught that when Arabs fled the area, it was only because their leaders told them to move aside until the Jews could be driven into the sea. It was only much later that I learned about the massacre of Palestinian civilians in Deir Yassin and the killings and forced evacuation at Lida. You know, European migration to the Americas may have been inevitable, and Jewish migration to Palestine may also have been inevitable. In neither case can the clock be wound backward, but that does not excuse us from facing up to the damage that has resulted and persists. On Rosh Hashanah, Reverend Mike McBride spoke to us about atonement in regard to reparations for the damages of white supremacy. Like him, I'm not here to spell out details about how to structure the necessary repair of historical damage in Israel-Palestine. But also like him, I must affirm that no atonement and no repair is possible unless we can at least see the damage and not deny that it is in fact damage. We should not deny that we know that suffering is happening. I remember my mother reacting to a TV interview with a woman who had lived in Germany during the Holocaust. As she spoke, claiming that she had been unaware that anything bad was happening to the Jews during the war, my mother blurted out, "Sich gemacht nicht wissendig." They render themselves as if they don't know. So much better in the Yiddish. Sich gemacht nicht wissendig. But we must never pretend that we just don't know. My pain is that so many in the institutional Jewish community make themselves nicht wissendig, as if unknowing. And they would prefer that we not see and that we not talk about what we do see. And I also have pain when those Jews who do speak of the damage are regarded as enemies or kooks or self-hating Jews, when they are merely acting out of the values of concern for the oppressed that they absorbed growing up in the Jewish community. Rabbis have lost jobs for saying less than what I have said here today. Many of the dissenters are young Jews whose wisdom and intelligence would have made them the likely institutional leaders of the Jewish community in the decades ahead. Instead, they are looking elsewhere for their professional engagements. Reverend Mike quoted Rabbi Heschel last week, "Few are guilty, but all are responsible." If so, and we do know what is happening, then we must accept responsibility even if we are not guilty. But the Talmud goes a step further than Heschel. It teaches that when we see that a harm has been done, we must protest, because if we do not, then our complacency becomes complicity. In Talmud Tractate Shabbat, it says, anyone who can protest the harmful actions of their household and does not becomes accountable together with their household. The same in regard to the deeds of their townspeople. One becomes accountable together with their townspeople. And the same for what the whole world is doing, one becomes accountable together with the whole world. Kol mi she'efshar limchot la'anshe beito v'lo micha nitfas al anshe beito. Ba'anshe iro nitfas al anshe iro. Kol ha'olam kulo nitfas al kol ha'olam kulo. Well, the thing about Kehillah is that we are willing to look and we are willing to know. In 2015, we surveyed the Congregation for People's Attitudes about Israel-Palestine. Many people not only answered checkbox questions, but they wrote an explanation of their views. It took me several days to read all the comments. Reading them, I could see that we are diverse in some ways and united in others. People in Kehillah identify as Zionist, anti-Zionist, non-Zionist, and I don't know what to call myself. Some favored a two-state solution, some favored a one-state solution, some favored a boycott approach to opposing Israeli policies, others were not in favor. Yet for all these differences, Kehillah people were pretty consistent in their concern for the well-being of both Israeli Jews and Palestinians, and they were united in their support of equal rights and dignity for all the peoples of Israel-Palestine. There was near unanimity that the building of Jewish-only settlements in the occupied territory defeated the interests of peace and justice. Out of the results of that survey, we developed a draft statement on our values on Israel-Palestine. Our first open discussion to consider and critique that first draft of the statement was held at the Yom Kippur afternoon gathering break in 2015. In 2016, after more open discussions and several more drafts, we surveyed the congregation to approve the wording, and the Board of Trustees voted to accept the final draft, especially in light of the overwhelming approval. The statement is a testament that we do know and we do see the damage, and that we as a community seek healing for this damage and for a repair of what has been broken. Healing and repair, that is the purpose of atonement. But in another sense, that statement of values is also our prophetic protest, our resistance to complacency. I believe that it is a statement that each of us need to read periodically. Maybe it should be the Haftarah. Copies are available in the lobby, and you can find it on the Kehillah website. As part of my personal atonement and protest, I went to the West Bank with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence in 2017, on the 50th anniversary of my first trip there. I'll be going back with the CGNV this December. While I was there 2 years ago, I worked with Palestinians and with 120 Jews from around the world. Among the Jews, there were people from J Street, from Jewish Voice for Peace, from If Not Now, and many others. Some of us identified as Zionist, and some of us did not. But we could not allow our labels to divide us. What united us was our willingness to see that the occupation was causing serious damage, and that the values of the prophets that we osmosed as Jews required us not to look away, to not stand idly by, but to serve as allies as best as we are able in the effort to advance healing in the land of Israel, the land of Palestine. I want to close by expressing that there are so many issues that face us, so many damages and traumas that need healing. As a community, we're working on white supremacy, on the oppression of immigrants, on the deterioration of the natural environment, to name just a few. Not one of us can expect to fully participate in all the work of Tikkun Olam that needs to be done. Amy Shutkin and I put out a social action email every 2 weeks, and nobody could possibly engage with everything on the social action calendar. Doing too much as one individual will only burn you out, and everyone is needed for the long haul. The issue is not whether you're doing everything, but whether you're willing to not turn away and to not make yourself unknowing. And then it is upon each of us to choose where to commit our energies commensurate with one's interests and abilities. These last hours of Yom Kippur invite you to consider how you can focus your energies this year to advance healing in this world. The doors to teshuvah and to healing are always open. Step through them and be part of the process. And we all be written and sealed in the book of life. Amen.
Ya da 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 da. Ay da 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 da. Ay da da. Ay da da. Ay da 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 da. Ay ay ay. Ay da da.
I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where will my help come? It comes from the Eternal One, creator of the heavens and the earth.
Esa inai el heharim yavo ezri esainai el heharim ayin yavo ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim va'aretz Ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim va'aretz esainai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri esainai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim va'aretz Ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim va'aretz.
We made it. As a chronically ill person, I like to think of myself as a special butterfly. Like the monarchs of California who flourish only in our very specific temperate climate, only munching on milkweed, my well-being requires a very specific climate, a very specific habitat, and a very specific diet. Because of these precise needs, the monarch is not doing well with climate change. It's counted every year on Thanksgiving, and this past year there were only 30,000 monarchs in California, which is down from 200,000 last year and 4.5 million in the 80s. I feel like we have to take that in for a moment. Likewise, sometimes being sick or disabled in an era of climate chaos feels like being an endangered creature. Especially on a day like today, when power outages are leaving hundreds, if not thousands, of people left without a plan for charging their wheelchairs, sterilizing their feeding tubes, with no official plan for medical necessity. However, this is really only part of the story. Sick and disabled people have crucial survival skills that everyone needs in this era. We know what it means to live with sickness and scarce resources. And right now, our planet is sick. My body and the earth need the same kind of sensitive care right now. It strikes me that I don't have the buffer of wellness, just like the planet doesn't have the buffer of ozone. But it's really not just true for chronically ill people, what I'm talking about. Eventually, we all lose some of our buffer. We might get more sensitive because of aging, because of illness, because of disability, because of depression or anxiety, because of bereavement, or because of caregiving. But eventually, we will become more sensitive. And we will come to need the same things that our sensitive ecosystem needs right now. First of all, for healing, we need to be believed, just like the planet needs to be believed right now. that what is going on is real, that our wounding is real, that our healing is urgent, and that our pain is real. Our bodies and the earth need many different kinds of care right now, from many different kinds of skills. We need scientists, we need artists, we need activists collaborating for our wellness. And we both need rest. Traditionally, the Ohlone people would have periods of controlled fires to allow the land here to rest. And the absence of these fires is part of what, and these periods, these interludes for the forest is part of what has led to the uncontrolled wildfires that we've been experiencing. And it strikes me that this is very similar to the uncontrolled, the lack of interludes of work that capitalism demands of us, leading to raging wildfires of burnout for so many of us. At first, the image of a nearly weightless butterfly appears to be an image of just vulnerability, but butterflies, like bees and ants and moths and bats, are pollinators. And the future of our food supply, and really the future of our existence, depends on them, depends on their power. Like many of you probably, I grew up on Hollywood movies that were about saving the world, and the ending always had a lot of explosions and bangs and big pyrotechnics, and probably squashing ants was not important. 5780 is not a year for one of those endings. That is not what is going to save the world right now. 5780 is a year to tread lightly on the soft things that the earth depends on. And it's a year for deep awareness of our interconnection with all living things and our own terrifying vulnerability. Thinking we weren't vulnerable is how we got into this mess. Both Rabbi Dev and Rabbi Gray spoke this morning about how we are about to walk and roll into this moment of a portal of incredible possibility. And for me, part of this possibility is getting in touch with the part of us that gets sick, the part of us that grieves, the part of us that will die, just like every other living creature. This is where our healing lies in 5780, is noticing that we are not invulnerable, just like the planet isn't. As the artist Jenny Holzer said in the 1990s and posted it on billboards, it is in your self-interest to find a way to be very tender.
Healing song on your song sheet. If you don't have one, share with a neighbor. For each of us and our beloved planet. We sing you healing. We sing you care. We sing you justice. We sing you prayer. We sing you healing. We sing you care. We sing you justice. We sing you prayer. El na repa na la.
a prayer for healing from wounding. We're going to wait on that prayer. Our wounds will still be there.
It's getting a little.
We're going to go now actually into our sharing time, which is the heart of our time together today. So what we're going to do now is get into triads. And if you would prefer to spend your time in silent meditation as opposed to in dialogue, just simply put your hand over your heart as we are getting into our thruples. And people will know that you would rather, really triads. People will know that you would rather be alone. And we're going to have some structured shared time. And it's time for witnessing and being witnessed. Each person will have 5 minutes to talk, and after 5 minutes, we'll ring a bell, so there's no need for you to keep track of your own time. And for those 5 minutes, there's no crosstalk, and those 5 minutes of sharing are confidential. So you can share what you want to share and know that it doesn't leave this room, and that means it doesn't leave this room. And also, don't assume that the person or the people that you are speaking to will want to even continue the conversation after today. This is a special, vulnerable moment, and it may be that the conversation just sits with today. So this is your time to share whatever it is that is on your heart for healing. And I'm going to offer some prompts now before we get into our groups. And use them if they speak to you. A lot of them for me are about our connection with the planet, because it was hard for me to think about healing this year without thinking about the health of the air we breathe and the water we drink. But if your heart is in a different place, take this time for yourself. So here are some prompts that might inspire sparks for you. Are you or is someone you know being made sick by the toxins in our environment? Do you still feel last year's wildfires in your lungs? Do you still feel them in your soul? Are you feeling depressed or anxious about the future? Do you know how to talk to your children about the future? Have you lost people or places you cared about due to climate change? As the planet is changing, do you have new dreams or visions for the horizon of the possible? Do our political or ecological realities impact your physical or mental well-being on a day-to-day basis? Does the beauty of the world feel more precious to you now? Is the pace of modern life making it hard for you to get the rest that your body so desperately needs? Where are you tender in your heart, mind, or body right now? What is that tenderness trying to tell you? What parts of you need healing right now? How might your personal healing be connected to the world's healing? So take a moment to get into groups and take this time for the conversation you need. Sorry about that. I just skipped right to the end. Yes, please. Thank you for being our timekeeper. I'm a little spaced. Yeah.
If you're taking turns in a triad, it's time to come to completion and trade turn takers.
The question that hit me on that list was that have you lost before places? And May the one who blessed our ancestors be present to those who provide help for the ill and distressed among us. May we be filled with calm and courage, endowed with empathy and compassion as we give love to those at our side. May we welcome all the complex emotions of this journey, find the support we need along the way, and continue to find the strength to accompany those who depend on us. And in our love of others, may we know the blessing of community, the protection of our ancestors, and the tender sheltering of the divine presence.
Amen, 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 amen. Amen, 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 amen. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, amen,
And now, a blessing for healing, for moving. The day always comes when your body learns to live with the trauma life has sunk into your bones, learns to let blood pool alongside the broken and jagged fragments of your singular shattering. Healing is not as we imagined. There is no seamless return to who you were before. Help us to trust that the day will arrive when we become once again, one again, with the heart we felt torn away from, borne back by blessing, by the source of life that moves between each pulse. So we take a moment now to bless one another with the traditional priestly blessing. And this is an opportunity for everyone to receive blessing at this conclusion of our healing service. It's the traditional blessing that we offer to our children and we offer to the child within us. May the Eternal One bless you and keep you safe from harm. May the mysterious presence shine their face upon you and be loving to you. May the Holy One lift up her face to you and bring to you shalom, peace, wholeness, healing.
We are beginning the last service of Yom Kippur. Please turn to page 94 for the Chatzah.
This is a fine time to take a stretch break by rising in spirit and body.
Please be seated. Please turn to page 95. But you won't need it for a few minutes. I have been wondering, I have been asking myself, why the Ne'ilah service speaks to me as much as it does. Why I love Ne'ilah the way I do. And the word that keeps coming up for me this year, different words, different years, but the word this year is freedom. Ne'ilah is a gift of freedom. At the very beginning of Yom Kippur, a long time ago, last night, at Kol Nidre, we ask for the freedom to question our assumptions, our behaviors, our patterns, to question authority, to question our addictions. During Yom Kippur, we try to use that freedom. We have been trying to use that freedom in a holy and loving way to gain new perspectives, to be able to think and feel new things, to be free to act in new ways. it seems to be only a little bit. Now at the end of the day, at Ne'ilah, we ask for the freedom and wisdom and love to know what assumptions, habits, patterns to take with us into the new year, which to transform and which to let go of, and which to mourn. Ne'ilah is the partner and the complement of Kol Nidre. They both only exist on this day. Both are twilight services. They live in the in-between. They are liminal, which means they can take us to and perhaps through the thresholds of our life, in our community, in our society. The thresholds of change and transformation. Thresholds are powerful. Powerful places where we might be available to a deeper acceptance of who we are and where we are. To new insights and understandings. To creative solutions. To be available even to our calling at this moment. This moment in our lives. Yom Kippur is all about thresholds. And one of the traditional images is that the gates of heaven open at Kol Nidre and close at Ne'ilah until next year. I don't think that's true. The gates of this Yom Kippur, the gates of the day, they are closing. But the gates of heaven and the gates of our heart are always there to open. Always there to open. The poet Marge Piercy calls Yom Kippur the hinge of the year. She writes, the hinge of the year, the great gates opening and then slowly, slowly closing on us. Just as there is a tradition that we get an extra bit of soul and spirit on Shabbat, I think that on Yom Kippur, we get extra soul, spirit, and an extra degree of freedom. An extra bit of hinginess. The freedom of Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre, and Ne'ilah is the freedom and power of the hinge. It is the hinge that allows us to open and close and be anywhere in between. To move through the gate this way or that, or to stay where we are. Hinges are simultaneously the most powerful and transformative and the most vulnerable part of a gate. A gate is no longer really a gate if it is off its hinges or if the hinges are frozen. We live in a time when individuals and governments are too often frantically trying to build walls without gates. And when they're becoming unhinged, it becomes more and more important for us to treasure and nurture and repair the gates of our heart and the gates of the world. It becomes more and more important for us to treasure and nurture the freedom of Yom Kippur and to bring that freedom responsibly into our lives in in this new year. Both Colindre and Ila are generous. They take us exactly as we are, and they help us to the next step, exactly as we are. And the next step could be a decision, or a feeling, or a prayer from your heart. It could be grief, or courage, or clarity. It could be gratitude and song for the gifts we have gotten and are about to receive in our lives, and in particular from Yom Kippur. Even the gifts we don't know we have received. The next steps could be mindful waiting in the unknowing, which is not the same as being stuck. And the next step could be being stuck. The next step could be an insight, as clear as a shofar or as quiet as the whisper of a whisper. The gifts continue past the end of the day, but the gates of the day are closing, and the gates of heaven and possibility remain open. Ne'ilah is a generous gift of freedom and wisdom and love and care. Pitchu li, page 95. Open for us the gates.
Shara
about to enter into the last Amidah, the last silent meditation of this Yom Kippur. It is traditional to open the ark during the Ne'ilah, Amidah, and to keep it open for the rest of the service. Therefore, it is traditional to rise in spirit or body for the rest of the service. Of course, take care of yourself. If you need to sit down at some point, it's fine. We invite any of you who are so moved to come to the Bima, to be part of the ark opening, and to daven Ne'ilah on the Bima. We have chairs up here in case you need to sit. So take a second and see if you feel called to come up. And in the middle of page 39 is a list of some of the possible ways to daven the Amidah. Please turn to page 39. The English starts on page 40, the Hebrew on page 47. There are meditations on page 123. And of course, there are the words of your heart, or the ability to be in meditation in silence. And now take a moment to get a sense of how you want to do the last silent meditation, and what your intention is for this service. If you are so called, so moved to come to the front, please do so now. Shalom and I will help us enter the Amidah with P'tach Lanu Sha'ah. Open for us the gates. It's on page 97 if you don't really necessarily read the book. Open for us the gates. Open for us the gates in the hour of closing the gates. For the day is passing away. The day is turning away. The sun is returning to set. May we now come into your gates. We pray, gentle God, we pray. Forgive us, we pray. Let us start anew, we pray. Have compassion for us, we pray. Have grace upon us, we pray. Let us atone now, we pray. Help us in our teshuvah, we pray.
Hashem
to enter into the vidui. And again, the last vidui, the last confessional of the scene. Avi had an intuition that he told me about a couple of minutes ago. His intuition was that there may be some of you that some part of you is calling you to actually come up on the bima and daven, but that you're holding yourself back. Because after all, it's the bima. If that's the case, if it's not the case, fine. But if that's the case, see what happens if you move forward. Page 67. Yud Hey, Vav Hey. Good intuition. Avi tells you he has an intuition. On the bottom of page 68 and the top of page 69. You're doing the full Ashamdin. Take a second and just see where you are at this moment. What you need to look at, not just for yourself, but for everyone. For everyone. to take a minute of silence. And during that time, for you to look at yourself and to look at the truth. The truth about the things that you wish you hadn't done. The truth about the things you wish you had done and hadn't. The truth about your strengths. Whatever yourself is telling you is the truth, just listen. Just look. Just feel it. Let's do that now. Bottom of page 69. So there's more truth. That was one layer of truth. See what's next. See what's next. Let's take another moment of silence. know how to say one more time in another way. One more time. See what's there. And your job is to listen. Just to listen. These are called confessions. You can do that too. But just listen. Please turn to page 114 for Ya'ala. From last night, throughout the day, and into this moment, this holy moment of twilight, we have looked at the truth as clearly as we could. We have listened as clearly and wholeheartedly as we could. We have prayed and sung and soul searched. We have looked at what we have been, at who we are, and what we can become. May our voices, our silences, and our movements join together, flourish, and help create insight and transformation, peace, healing, and justice. Ya'ala. is say and one is finish. If someone in your life, important to you in some way, has died in the last year, please say their name now. If this is the yard sale, the anniversary of someone's death, please say their name now. Let's say it slowly. Feeling every word. Yitkada, Yitkadash, Shamei Rabba. Yamad Yifratirute, Yamrif Malchute, Bechayechon, Ubiomechon, Ubechayetechon, Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Ubizman, Kadir, B'Imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Me'olam Olam Ma'ah. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yithaleh, V'yithalal, Shemei L'Kudashah, B'richu, Le'elah u'le'elah, B'kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechamata, Da'biram bi'alma v'imru. Yehei Shlama Rabba bin Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom b'romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol Yishmael, v'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, v'imru. Amen. Please turn to page 96. We are beginning the last series of prayers. The gates of this day are closing. O source of forgiveness, source of wisdom, source of compassion, tenderness, and loving kindness, may we experience what we need. May we experience the awe and open-heartedness we seek in this time as the gates are closing. El Nora Alina.
Thank you.
page 109. May we feel your holy power. And anyone who has to show form and wants to go show form at the very end of the service, please lead Rabbi David. Rabbi David, right here. Please do that after the prayer. May we feel your holy power.
May we feel your holy power. May we feel your holy strength. May we feel your holy presence. Surround us in this holy place. May we feel the earth beneath our feet as we bend and bow to you. May our bodies rise to greet you as we feel your presence pouring through. It is upon us, it's upon us, to feel your holy ground. It's upon us, it's upon us, to hear your holy sound. It's upon us, it's upon us, to feel the love inside. It's upon us, it's upon us, to taste you and not hide. It's upon us, it's upon us, to take you back to you. It's upon us, it's upon us, to do what's right and true. It's upon us, it's upon us, to reach up to the sky. It's upon us, it's upon us, to take our wings and
Shofarim to David.
Hallelujah, 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 de Adonai.
Page 98.
Hallelujah, 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 de Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah,
Hashkina, He Elohim, no one but the one, Adonai, Hu Elohim, no one but the one, Hashkina, He Elohim, Kia Gedolah.
Shana Tova, everyone. Yeah! Say that again. Shana Tova. Right? We're alive and well. Yeah. Still here. Been with you for a long time. So, I'm Michael, and my job is to tell you what comes next so you can get fed, but if you would please indulge me, there's a couple of things that I think are really important that I want to just say. First, I want to acknowledge this incredible group of folks who led us through this world. And then as well to an acknowledgement of all the hard work that went in from the Kihila staff and a ton of volunteers amongst you. These things are not like miracles from, well, they are miracles from the heavens, but they're also the work of good work, hard work of our folks. So thank you to all of you. I also want to note something. Some of you may have noticed that you might feel a little bit more comfortable tonight and less hot, and you can see. And so I want to just point out that because of a contribution from a generous congregant of ours and the hard work of a bunch of people, we have an air conditioner, blue lights which are radiating off of our very clean roof. Okay, next I want to just say, we made it through the evening with our power, but I think that there's people amongst us who are going back to houses that do not have power. You are invited to come tomorrow between 9 and 5 if you need a place that has electricity, Wi-Fi, a place to plug in, or a microwave to warm up your vegetarian lunch. You're invited to come join us here if you would like. There was another thing. Thank you. So the other thing, it's really marvelous. I don't know if you looked around. This is quite a group of people. And it is made up of people who are here a lot, people who are here sometimes, and people who are here for the first or for one of their first times coming. And so it is marvelous to have you, and those of you who haven't been around that much should know this is your community too. You are invited and welcome to be here. You can come back very soon on the Shabbat of Sukkot. We have a Friday night dinner in the Sukkah and a Saturday morning special great service. Sukkot, and then on Monday night, the 21st, all these chairs are going to get moved out of the way, and we're going to dance like crazy to our community klezmer band for Simchat Torah on the night of the 21st. So do come back for that. I guarantee, money back guarantee the bill is right. Okay? Take that from me. And now I want to say something about how we're going to go ahead and get fed after this marvelous day, which is that thank you to those of you who brought along some potluck food, but in particular, you also will be fed. There will be plenty of food because we are being catered by our friends at Sacred Kitchen, but it is because of the generous donation from the Riley Newfield family in honor of their grandmother who loved to feed people. So we're going to feed people tonight. So thank you to all of those. And what you should know is that the meal will be downstairs. The food is in the fireside room. You walk in, we'll have someone point the way, but you walk in through the Emma Goldman room and circle into the fireside room and pick up food, and then come back, and there are tables in the social hall, and there's extra tables in the back in the Emma Goldman room, and you can go sit there. But in order to sit there, we're going to need a whole bunch of you to grab the folding chairs and bring them downstairs to put around the tables in the social hall and the Emma Goldman room. So please do that. And the other thing is, please take your machzori and bring them back and stack them on the back. And is there anything else I forgot? And if you want a little more peace and quiet, you can go sit out in a courtyard. That's available also. Before you walk out of here, we're going to say Motzi to start the meal. Yep. Here we go.